Another huge NL East matchup between the Mets and the Phillies that had an October postseason feel to it. Pour the pumpkin spice. This is MLB Game Night.
When that final out is made, you know it's time for Locked On MLB Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On MLB Game Night. Your team every day.
Welcome in to MLB Game Night. Every game, every night. I'm J.D. Hafron, one of your hosts here from Locked On Cardinals. Jon Frisch joining me, one half of Locked On Angels, also a guy who lists candy corn and circus peanuts as his favorite Halloween candies. Let him know in the comments section how you feel about that, kids. Coming up on today's show, no hitter watch in Cleveland, no hitter watch in Los Angeles. We had 6 West Coast games, including the Padres, who needed some bonus baseball to decide a winner, plus a milestone hit by the Giants' Logan Webb. We'll get to all of that here momentarily. Today's show brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, we're going to start with the Mets and the Phillies. And I know people are like, oh, you guys are always talking about these guys. Well, it's because they're both very good teams, and they play some pretty good baseball against each other.
Right.
This one was another one that just had the feels, John. At the end of August, we got to cover a huge series between the Phillies and Mets in New York. That series saw the Mets sweep the Phillies, made things very interesting in the NL East division. Since that series, the Phillies went 7-3 against the Braves, Brewers, and Marlins, while the Mets went 4-6 against the Marlins, Tigers, and the Reds. Oh my. But they still hold the third wildcard spot in that National League and hope to, pad those standings in a race to end the season. Now, the Phillies host the Mets on their home turf, and they're doing it without a Philly Karen in sight. As far as you don't know where she's hiding, John. She could be anywhere. By the way, speaking of like Halloween and stuff like that, have you seen the memes and stuff of like the, Halloween costume in a bag of Philly Karen? How many Philly Karens?
I'm going to have to dye. I'm going to have to dye the top of my hair like white for Halloween, and then I'll wear these. You're going to
have to trim it up on the bottom half.
I'll pin it up or something. Yeah.
There you go. But it's just hilarious stuff. Like, I don't want to bag on her too much, but that was uncalled for. Anyway, on to the baseball field. Aaron Nola has had a tough go this year, right, John? Aaron Nola has not been very good at all. Took the mound for the Phillies, while the newly christened ace of the Mets staff, Nolan McLean, also got to take the hill. This one truly turned into a pitcher's duel. We got Connor Thomas here to give us the details on the stellar pitching that carried the Phillies to a big win.
The Phillies take down the Mets in an absolute thriller. That felt like October baseball. My goodness. I'm Connor Thomas, your host of Locked On Phillies. And boy, Joan Duran slamming the door with the tying run on third, 1 out. The winning run on second, or at least the go-ahead run, 1 out, and still takes care of business, strikes out the last 2 guys, and it shuts the door on an awesome pitching night for the Phillies. There is no one that deserves more credit for this game than Aaron Nola, who went 6 scoreless. Just when you think he's not going to give this team anything this year that they can work with, he goes out and does that and looks dominant against the New York Mets. That was incredibly impressive. Now, I'm not at the point of, oh, he's fine, buy back in, start game 2 of the postseason, but boy, was that an encouraging sign. And the Phils didn't do much to the plate. Didn't have to. They shut out the Mets. They win game 1 without Trey, without Bohm, without Marsh. We'll talk more about this awesome win on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Phillies.
First off, Connor steals my October pumpkin spice reference there and talking about October feels going on there. Second off, what did we just talk about last week, John? We're like, dude, Aaron Nola, kind of the key to this whole thing. If they can get him to be anywhere near what he normally is in his major league career, we feel like they're going to be okay. They got a bunch of those lefties in the starting rotation. And if you bring in a Nola, seasoned veteran who's won some big games for them, pretty dangerous team right there. A narrow 1-0 Phillies win as they extend their lead over the Mets to 8 games in the NL East. On the other side, we got Chris Schubert of Locked On Mets. He does the postcast for them, sharing his concerns about the teams breathing down the neck of the Mets.
Theoretically, everything is on their side, but the New York Mets right now flirting with disaster. A 1-0 loss in the opener of this series against Philly. Dreams of the NL East comeback, dead. Philly up 8 games now at this point. That is over. More importantly, the objects in the rearview mirror or in the side mirror are closer than they appear because the Mets potentially are allowing teams like the Diamondbacks, the Cardinals, the Giants, and the Reds all to be 4 games or fewer and within striking distance of them for that third and final wild card spot. We all think the Mets are okay. We all think the math is on the Mets side. We all look at the playoff percentages that have them in the high 90s. But this recent stretch of play from the Mets, their offense being a little quiet since scoring 22 runs in the first 2 games against Detroit, starting to leave us a little bit worried. Hopefully Sean Manaea tomorrow. And in general, the Mets team can turn it around. They can get themselves some cushion for this third wild card spot, and they can make us all breathe a sigh of relief.
All right. Nolan McLean, obviously still awesome. Had a fantastic game. You know, he ends up giving 1 run over 5 1/3, 5 Ks, 7 hits. By the way, anytime you say his name, do you want to say it like Hans Gruber, like I do? McLean.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like saying it that way? Anywho, I don't know. I'm feeling goofy tonight. Anywho, John, you think Chris is right with his take? Suddenly things have gotten really interesting in the wild card race, hasn't it?
Look, the fact that I know that a lot of people weren't happy with the third wild card spot when it was introduced, right? It was, it's too many playoff teams, too many people getting in. They get a gimme, whatever. But look, it certainly made things interesting at the end of the season because when you think about, the Padres sitting at 78 wins, and I think they got 79 tonight after the win, and we'll talk about that later. There's a good gap between them and then the Mets and all those teams that are breathing down the Mets' necks. And so it made things a whole lot more interesting. Like, I'm no Rob Manfred fan, but he has done a couple of things that I think have made the game a lot more interesting down the stretch, especially with that third wild card spot, because we've got 3 weeks of play left. And anything could happen, as we've seen with the Diamondbacks of 2023. All you need is a chance. All you need to do is get into the postseason, and then you could end up in the World Series. You might not win the World Series, but you can still get there and have a chance just like anybody else in the postseason. That's really what you want if you're a fan of any of these teams. It's gotten really interesting, JD. I love it.
Absolutely. One team that is not really that interesting right now is the Milwaukee Brewers because they've been so good this year. They were in Texas. We just got through talking about how exciting the NL wildcard race has become on the American League side of things. The Rangers are all of a sudden in that conversation. They kind of popped out of nowhere, and they'd have to face the Brewers at home to keep their momentum going. The Rangers certainly would keep it going thanks to a huge night from their center fielder, Michael Hellman. Who? Yeah, that's right. Former Cardinal legend Michael Hellman, spring training legend Michael Hellman, drives in 5 runs, all 5 of them in the shutout victory over the Brewers. Here's Chuck from Locked On Brewers. He's got the details on a very rare night of miscues and falling short for Milwaukee.
Not too often this year where we can say, especially this summer, that the Brewers got taken to the cleaners. Hey, everybody, Chuck Freeman, Instant Reaction, Locked On Brewers. Just didn't play a good game. Got some guys thrown out on the base paths. Jose Quintana was taking a perfect game into the 5th, and then he gave up a couple of walks. There was a drop pop-up to start things off there down the first base line. Terang couldn't negotiate the pop-up, and then eventually the 8th place hitter in the Rangers lineup hit a grand slam, added a base hit that drove it a run a little bit later on. Hellman did, and that's the way the night went for the Brewers. It just wasn't a good night. Again, scoreless tie until the grand slam. And we'll just chalk it up as hard to get angry at the Brewers, right? They've been so good, but they've only been 11-12 since that 14-game winning streak. And we'll talk about this a little bit later on tonight on the next edition of Locked On Brewers.
See, Chuck's got the right demeanor there. He's not freaking out. He's like, all right, one bad night. What are you going to do? But he does point out that they've been pretty mediocre in recent weeks. They've got the number 1 seed all but locked up. They're really going to have to fall apart for them to lose that. But would you trust them, John, in a series against the Phillies or the Dodgers, 2 teams that they're likely going to have to go through to get to the World Series? Would you trust them in a series against them right now?
I trust the Brewers as much as I trust the Phillies and the Dodgers right now, JD, because the Dodgers have been hit and miss. The Phillies, just got swept by the Mets at the beginning or at the end of last month, right? So I think that everybody has had their moments. All of these big teams have certainly had their moments. And when it comes to playoff baseball, it really just comes down to, hey, who's having a good week? Who's having a bad week, right? And that's really what I think it's going to come down to between teams like the Brewers, the Phillies, and the Dodgers, because they've all had their ups and downs. They've all been riding the highest of highs, and they've hit some pretty low lows. We just got through talking about the Pirates sweeping the Dodgers last week, and it's just like, where does that come from sometimes? But at the end of the day, going back to your question, I trust the Brewers just as much as I trust the Phillies and the Dodgers. They've all got their strengths. They've all got their weaknesses. I feel like out of those 3 teams, the Phillies have been probably the most consistent, but they are dealing with some injuries. The Brewers are a good team that take advantage of mistakes in games, and so that's something that they could capitalize on as well. And then the Dodgers, right? Carrying a no-hitter, and we'll talk about that later, but also down 1-0, and of course they came back and had some offense later on. Just so many, I don't want to say flaws in these teams, but certainly things that can come back to bite you when the moment really matters, and every moment matters in the playoff series.
All right. Well, he brought it up a little bit, a little no watch going on in LA. We had a no watch in Cleveland today as well. We'll talk about that next, coming up on MLB Game Night. Today's show is being brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live, especially when your team is in the hunt for a playoff spot. But actually getting the tickets, that's where it can get a little bit tough, right? You deal with queues, you deal with login screens, surprise fees that just pop up out of nowhere. It takes all the fun out of it. And that's why I use Gametime. It's why John uses Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's fast, it's easy, and it's backed by their Gametime guarantee, where you always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. I mentioned how that can be a real nuisance when all of a sudden everything you thought that was supposed to be way cheap becomes way more expensive. You don't have to worry about that with Gametime. They don't do that to you. It makes things a whole lot less stressful than any other way that you can buy tickets. So download that Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. MLB Game Night taking you through the entire league and all the action on your Monday. We're going to go to Cleveland here, where the Royals were visiting the Guardians, and we're going to keep it going with another wild card chase. There's a lot of them going on, which makes things very exciting, as you mentioned earlier in the show, John. This time it's 2 teams in the AL Central. Now, the Guardians are hosting the Royals in this series, both just sitting behind the Rangers and the Mariners, with Seattle holding the last wild card spot currently. The Guardians have been able to climb back into this race over the last few weeks. They're one of those teams that certainly had the ups and downs, these long losing streaks, and then they just kind of pop off and win like 7 out of 10. And here we are, helped by a series win against the Mariners, 2 series wins against the Rays. Today's game, Cleveland history was almost made. We've got Justin Latta of Locked On Guardians, who's reporting from Progressive Field to tell us all about this almost historic game.
Big blowout win for the Cleveland Guardians to start a 4-game set against the Kansas City Royals. They try to keep their playoff hopes alive. They got it done early. They got it done often. A win we haven't seen a lot of this year for the Cleveland Guardians. Justin Latta here from Locked On Guardians. Big story with Slade Cecconi taking a no-hitter into the 8th inning. Number 44 almost ended a 44-year drought of no-hitters for the Cleveland franchise, but it was not meant to be. But still, the Guardians won 10-0. Everybody in the line did something great. Brian Rocchio had a bunch of hits in this game. Kyle Manzar, a couple of RBIs. Jose gets on. He gave us 2 doubles in this game. Zach Kent came in at the end and was maybe the worst player on the team this night, except for Bo Naylor at the plate. But this is a really big start for the Guardians this series. If they're going to keep their playoff hopes alive, the offense has to come to life to support the pitching staff, who's been really good lately. And they knocked the Royals starter out pretty early in this game, got into their bullpen, made them throw a catcher, former Guardians backup Luke Bailey, in game 1 of a 4-game series. If they can get this bullpen tired and wear them down and pitch well, the Guardians could be in really good shape to continue chasing down a playoff spot and play more meaningful games at the end of the season. That's all we really want at this point. Tune to Locked On Guardians for more.
You know, they got some fun names over there in Cleveland. You're hearing about Slade Cecconi and Rocchio, and they got a Schneeman on that team too, don't they? That's one of their guys. Who else did he mention? Manzardo. These are fantastic names.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You're probably not familiar with any of them unless you root for the Cleveland Guardians. But
Right.
Cecconi was having a heck of a game in this one. 6 outs from the first no-hitter. The Guardians ended up with a big 10-2 win. They move ahead of the Royals in the AL wildcard race, just 2 games back of that third spot where the Mariners are. John, it would have been the first no-hitter in the league this season. Weird, right? We haven't had one of those yet. Are we going to have a no-no in 2025?
We got teased by Yamamoto's Yamanono, almost Yamanoto, and
Yamanada no-no.
That's exactly right. And that went from I think they said it the other night on Game Night. It went from a no-no to an oh-no for the Dodgers after they lost to the Orioles.
That was a shocker. Yes,
It's weird this season, man, and I don't know if it's just a matter of is hitting getting better? Is scouting reports getting better? Or is it just dumb luck that's getting it done? Because, man, to not have one no-hitter in 2025, and again, we'll talk about what happened with the Dodgers and the Rockies later on, but it's just a bizarre season of just things that you wouldn't expect, kind of like the Guardians coming up and being a part of this wild card race. Not something you would have expected. Not something I don't even think Justin Lotta of Locked On Guardians expected, as we've heard him say on this show many times, where he was ready to shut it down, turn off the lights, go home, everybody. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, right? And that's here we are. Now they're ahead of the Royals in the race. Of course, they still got a few more games to play against one another in this series, but as I mentioned, JD, everything has just come down to being so interesting here at the end of the season. But as far as no-nos go, I'm not sure we'll see one, because I don't think that playoff teams are going to want to push their starters to a no-no for the remainder of the season at this point.
Yeah, that's one of the big things is guys going deep into games, and are they able to have their pitch counts low enough for managers to risk, having them go in the 8th and 9th inning. So
right.
We're running out of time too, although we had a close one in Los Angeles. We're going to tell you about that here in a little bit. Let's go to Atlanta, where the Cubs were visiting. They'd lost 3 of their last 4, including last Wednesday against the Braves, although they ended up winning the series 2 out of 3, but are firmly in that top NL wildcard spot right now. And the Braves, they just got crushed on Saturday and Sunday by the Mariners, got outscored 28-4. So not great. Can the Cubs get back into the win column today? Sam Ulber from Locked On Cubs is here with the results, and he's at a loss for words about what's going on with the Chicago offense.
I don't know what else to say anymore. Another lifeless, boring game. Hopefully you're enjoying the Bears game. I'm Sam Ulber from the Locked On Cubs podcast. Cubs lose 4-1. Imanaga gave up 3 runs early and then settled down. For a normal team, 6 innings, 3 earned on the road, that's a pretty good start. He might as well have given up 300 runs with the way the Cubs are hitting. They scored 1 run. The quality of bats were horrible. I don't know if Kyle Tucker is active and available, like Counsell said. I don't understand why he didn't hit when they were rallying late. He didn't get an at bat. They were dominated by Bryce Elder for the second time in a week. It's the same story. I feel like a broken record. I don't want to watch Willie Castro play anymore. I like to see Seiya Suzuki get a couple of days. I've been saying that for a week. This team, it's putting it kindly that they're limping into the postseason as of now. They better get going quick.
I mean, you got to appreciate the honesty from Sam Ulber from Locked On Cubs. I do not want to see this guy play anymore. This offense has really had some troubles, John. 1 run on 5 hits for the Cubs. Lone run came on a sac fly by Matt Shaw in the 7th inning. Braves get 3 in the first inning, highlighted by a home run by Ozzie Albies. Matt Olson went yard later on. And Sam mentioned Bryce Elder dominating them again. 6 and a third innings in this one, allowed 1 run on 5 hits. He whiffed 6. That's back-to-back games that he's done this to him. Held them to 1 run over 7 innings last week. Give you some ugly stats. Cubs fans, I'm sorry, but this is just, this is honesty. Over their last 6 games, Cubs are hitting 200 as a team. 3 of the guys that carried them in the first half and were all-stars for it, Seiya Suzuki, Kyle Tucker, Pete Armstrong, have a combined 10 home runs since the All-Star break. That's together, combined, and are hitting 197, 242, and 225 respectively. How nervous are you, John, about this Cubs offense at this point in the season, considering this has been happening since the All-Star break?
Yeah, and look, they're sitting pretty right now at the top of the National League wild card. They're going to be okay, but the Padres are right behind them. I know that they both have spots at this point, right? But when you think about it, for them to have such a significant fall off with the offense, like, did something change? Did the mojo change? Did some of the trades that happened? Did Willie Castro bring bad vibes to the team? I mean, I think they're searching for answers right now. And look, I gotta say, I am concerned about this Cubs offense. You thought that Kyle Tucker came to life when he Frankensteined against the Angels a couple of weeks ago. He had 3 of those home runs that you mentioned just against the Angels. And you thought, okay, he's back to life, but I don't know what it is, man. It's just, it's all of these great teams on the cusp of the playoffs, just with certain flaws, certain issues that just keep coming up. And look, I think it's going to make for a great postseason because you don't know what's going to give. You don't know whose candle is going to burn out. Is it going to be the Cubs hitting that lets them down? Is it going to be the Phillies, Aaron Nola letting them down, right? And so there's just so many what ifs going into the postseason. I hope the Cubs can still get into the postseason, but with 3 weeks left and this kind of offense, I'd be concerned if I was a fan of the Cubbies. Also, the Bears lost tonight too.
Yeah, spoiler alert, John, in case there's a Bears fan all excited to go watch that game. Yeah, they blew it. Lost the Vikings. Anyway, coming up, Cleveland couldn't get that no, but Dodgers, Tyler Glasnow, he was dominant tonight in his outing against Colorado. Would they be able to hang on and get the no for the Dodgers? You'll find out next on MLB Game Night. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Now, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, whether it's properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table, and nobody wants to do that. And that's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together, all in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives, people like you and me. If you've put off organizing your finances, and who hasn't, Monarch is here for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. Back on MLB Game Night, year of the almost no. Rockies at the Dodgers, 2 teams on the opposite ends of the spectrum meeting in LA as the Rockies, who are eliminated from playoff contention, taking on the Dodgers, first place in the NL West. They open up a 3-game set on Monday, a few days after Yoshinobu Yamamoto was just one out away from a no-hitter before Jackson Holliday said bye-bye, knocked it over the wall, and then all of a sudden the Orioles win the game. Crazy stuff. Dodgers were at it again, though, tonight. And in a bit of a weird turn of events, Dodgers starter Tyler Glasnow had a no-hitter going into the 7th inning. He was on fire in this game, but he was losing. John, he was losing 1-0 against the Rockies while throwing a no-hitter due to a walk, then a stolen base, then a productive fly out. You know, they're playing ABC baseball in Colorado, and then a sac fly that scored the Rockies outfielder Jordan Beck. That's how you're losing. That's how you're losing. And the Dodgers offense was nowhere to be found. The only hit in the game up to that point came from every Dodgers fan favorite, Michael Conforto, who singled to lead off the bottom of the sixth. The second Dodgers hit came from Freddie Freeman, who tied it up with an RBI double in the bottom of the sixth. Glasnow would have to leave this game with the no-no intact and a tie ball game. Wasn't able to finish because he was too busy striking everybody out. He had 11 Ks, so the pitch count was going up, as we talked about earlier.
105 pitches.
Hard to go deep into games when you're striking everybody out. So Blake Trinan comes in. He gets a 1-2-3 inning with a K. But then it was my boy, Tanner Scott, who was thrown in 140 games so far this year. Been incredible, even though he got hurt. Who gives up a leadoff double to the Rockies' number 9 hitter out of all people, John. Gives up a double that sliced down the left field line. Unable to make the catch.
It wasn't even in the zone either. It was below the strike zone, and he just golfed it, dude.
Yeah. Brian Ritter. Only people know who that is are Rockies fans and his family. Right. Breaks up the no-hitter in the 9th inning. Scott would end up getting the save. Dodgers go on to win this one by a score of 3-1. But MLB still without a no-hitter this season, but Dodgers secured the victory, so that's what they're most concerned about. Moving on to the Reds at the Padres. Mentioned we got a lot of West Coast games. Right?
Yeah.
Two teams with playoff aspirations have gone through a bit of a rough stretch over the last week or so. Padres host those Reds in San Diego to start the series. Fortunately for the Padres, the Dodgers have also struggled. They came into tonight's matchup just one game back of LA in the NL West. Reds, meanwhile, they're among those teams that we talked about earlier that are still kind of there, breathing down the neck of the New York Mets. And they had their lefty Nick Lodolo back on the mound. He gets the nod against Yu Darvish for the Padres. Neither of them would actually factor into the decision, as this one needed a bonus baseball to decide a winner. We're going to hear from Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds on this team's struggles in extra innings.
Sure seems like it's just not in the cards for the Cincinnati Reds to play clean baseball. It's September, and there's still gaffes that are costing them ball games. They are now 3-11 in extra inning affairs. They've only won 3 games at home in extra innings, not any on the road. It's really tough right now, and you're going to look at those as one of the many reasons why this team misses the playoffs. But it's all about the finer points of this game. They struck out way too many times. This is now the 44th game that the Reds have struck out 11 times. If La Rosa's did like the reverse thing and gave away a free pizza whenever the Reds struck out 11 times, they'd be doing this 44 times in the season. Ellie De La Cruz number. Too many missed opportunities in this game. Too many missed opportunities in this season. I think we're getting close to calling this one for the playoff race anyway.
All right. Reds had a 3-0 lead into the 6th inning. That evaporated thanks to a 2-out RBI double by Gavin Sheets, then a 2-run triple by Jackson Merrill. That center fielder, TJ Friedel, just missed making an outstanding catch on. Great effort there, but he couldn't haul it in. Then in the 10th inning, the Reds failed to score or even move their free runner over to third base. Padres, they do it. They go for the sacrifice bunt to push their guy to third. Nick Martinez on the hill. He makes a throwing error, puts him on the corners with nobody out. Fernando Tatis Jr. hits the game-winning sac fly. Final score 4-3. Saw a tweet earlier. The Reds have nearly as many extra inning sac bunts as extra base hits. They have 2 sac bunts and 3 extra base hits in extra innings. Like they can't bunt. They can't get these guys over, and it's become a problem. And we know that that's so important in extra innings to move that runner over to third base. Padres moved to 3 games up on the Mets in the wild card, 1 game back of the Dodgers in the division. Reds don't lose any ground thanks to the Mets losing, but there's still a game back now of the Giants in the chase. The Reds' pulse is fading, John. Are you calling it yet? Like Jeff was talking about, or are you going to let him spend a little more time on the respirator?
I don't know, man. They've 11 Ks again. Like when you're double-digit Ks, like the Reds do, that's not going to win you ball games, man. And they have so much talent on that team, and for them to be where they are at this point, and even for Jeff to kind of be ready to call it on their playoff aspirations, I think that says a lot because, again, they're super talented, but it just seems like in moments like this where you've got to pick up some wins, you've got to build momentum, they just can't seem to find it despite all the talent they have across the field.
Yeah. Ellie De La Cruz, by the way, no home runs in his last 26 games and hitting 230 with 8 RBIs. Like,
that's not
his decline in the second half has been crazy for a guy who's got as much talent and is as young. He's not supposed to be falling apart yet in the second half, man. That's a veteran move. That's not somebody at his age. Cardinals at Mariners. Cardinals took 2 of 3 from the Giants over the weekend. Mariners grabbed 2 of 3 from the Braves. I mentioned outscored Atlanta big time, 28-4 in the final 2 games. Pitchers duel in this one. You had Brian taking on Miles Michaelis, and scoreless until the 5th inning. That's when Alec Burleson, in his first game back from the IL, hits a 2-run bomb to give St. Louis the lead, but in the 6th, the M's got a leadoff walk. Michaelis might have got squeezed a little bit, just saying. Then a single, which knocked him out of the game. Cardinals bullpen unable to escape that jam. Gordon Graceffo ends up walking Cal Raleigh and allows a single to Julio Rodriguez, then a 2-run double to Josh Naylor to grab the lead. Seattle wins it 4-2. Wu goes 6 innings, 9 Ks, picks up his 13th win of the season. Mentioned strikeouts. Seattle struck out 14 Cardinal hitters in this win. Twins at Angels, my friend. What do you got for us? What happened?
Yeah, something interesting. Royce Lewis from the Twins. He's never played an game at the Angels, at Angel Stadium. Probably. Yeah, he's always been hurt, but he is from Orange County in California. And so, Angels are a team that he grew up watching. But because of him being hurt, he's never had a chance to play against the Angels. But he did tonight. Had a huge homecoming game, 2 2-run homers in this one, his second career 2-homer game. That would have been enough to win the game, but the Angels only mustered up 3 runs. They had, I think, technically 3 errors if you look at the box score. I counted 6, JD, and I think that some of that stuff's going to get changed around, but it was sloppy baseball from the Angels, allowing the Twins to win this one 12-3. The only highlight was Zach Neto's crazy catch in shallow left field. So look it up. Enjoy Zach Neto. Even if you're not an Angels fan, just enjoy him while you can. And Royce Lewis, big homecoming for him. Twins win 12-3.
Nationals at the Marlins, and the Nationals run away with this one. They get out to an 8-1 lead with a big top of the 5th inning, putting up 6, including a 3-run home run from their top prospect, Dylan Cruz. 15-7 final score. Nats over Miami. The Sox and the A's. Garrett Crochet held the A's to just 3 hits over 7 innings and a 7-0 victory in Sacramento. Not an easy thing to do in that ballpark. 10 Ks, no walks. Lowers his ERA to 2.57. Him or Scooble, John? Who are you picking for the Cy Young this year?
Oh, man. I think Crochet's making it interesting, but I think I still got to go Scooble.
Pretty good. And then finally, Diamonds at the Giants. 2 more teams vying for a wild card spot in the NL meet in the Bay. San Francisco took the 11-5 win over Arizona in this one, thanks to a 5-homer night from the likes of your boy Dominic Smith, who you love, Elliot Ramos, Matt Chapman, Patrick Bailey, and Jung-Hoo Lee. Logan Webb goes 6 innings of 1-run ball, 7 Ks. With those 7 Ks, secured his first 200 strikeout campaign of his 7-year career in the big leagues, which is a little shocking. I know he's not a big strikeout guy, but a little shocking to see that he hadn't done that before. Giants would break the game open with the 5-run 6th inning. They're winners of 12 of their last 15 games. Cardinals just took 2 or 3 of them over the weekend, though. Just throwing that out there. But they do sit 3 games back of the Mets for the final wild card spot. Giants fans are going to be the biggest Philly fans this week. Yes or no, John?
That's right. Yes, absolutely. Giants fans are rooting for the Phillies this week.
All right. And that's going to wrap things up for MLB Game Night. Thank you guys for joining us for this episode. Hey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We hope you guys will come back and visit us next time on MLB Game Night. Every game, every night.